So, a lot of times we talk about, what are you as far as, as far as politics go? Are you a socialist? Are you a capitalist to your bones? Are you an anarchist? Are you one of the many varieties of anarchy that are out there? I mean, anarchy, when you really break down anarchy is a lot like ice cream. There's so many different flavors. You're bound to find something you like. But what are you? Are you a communist? What are you? And I think my pal David Rovics put it pretty good. David Rovics identifies as an anarchist. He's a singer-songwriter, did this show before. A lot of these terms get reinvented and reused, and they're applied in the contemporary sense. And it sort of dilutes their meaning a little bit, but we kind of need these terms to have something to go by. I think that's very true. These terms are they're reapplied, they're reassociated. So take it all with a bit of a grain of salt. But, we need something to start with. Like the DSA, the Democrat Socialist of America, basically they're just social democrats to my understanding. But in the contemporary sense, they're democratic socialists, which is mostly just a branding thing. And people ask me, Ron, if you had to pick one, because I don't really just pick one. I think I have a lot of different perspectives that can be sort of in a lot of different schools of thought, if you will. But I've said this before. If I had to pick one, I think the closest thing I would identify as is a market socialist. I think market socialist would be the closest thing to my views, which is basically what a lot of the countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, that's basically what they are. They are market socialist countries where workers have a seat at the table. They run the means of production for the most part. There are worker co-ops, especially in places like Catalonia. Maybe I would go a bit further even as far as worker co-ops go, because I'm 110% for them. But workers own the means of production, but the markets still kind of form themselves. If you want to start a pizza shop, you can. You just have to treat your workers fairly, and the workers have a seat at the table, basically. And if your pizza sucks and nobody buys it, well, I guess it's not going to work out for you. You don't get to have a planned situation where your pizza place gets to stay up no matter what. So yeah, that's basically, I would say, if I had to pick one glass, that is what I think is for the most part the clearest one. Now, somebody told me, in fact, David told me, that market socialism is also just a form of anarchy. I don't know which brand it is. You'd have to let me know. I don't know. Again, that's why you got to kind of take these terms with a grain of salt. But here's something interesting getting on the theme of all this. Poll sponsored by Anti-Communist discovers 70% of U.S. millennials ready to ditch capitalism for socialism. Critics blame poll results on historic amnesia, while progressive observers say millennials associate socialism with strong welfare systems. Now, you want to talk about amnesia. Amnesia would be not recognizing what neoliberalism has done to this country and capitalism has done to this country. Pretty much, it's been heavily amplified from 1980 until present. Amnesia would be not recognizing that every time capitalism is tried, the same problems happen. Literally every single time. Eventually, you get a rich and poor gap that is unforeseen, that's remnant of ancient Egypt, which is what we're at now in the United States. And you need strong socialist-style policies to bail it out. Every time capitalism has been tried, that's what happens. Every single time. So that's amnesia. Another form of misinformation that we have, especially in the contemporary United States, is we associate positive virtues, at least what I would refer to as positive virtues, we pin that to capitalism when the two are not really directly related. Capitalism is basically the pursuit of capital above all else, and eventually it leads to those with the most capital making all the rules. That's what capitalism is. The pursuit of capitalism is how everything revolves, and there's no protections for anybody else. And that leads to basic oligarchies and plutocracies, which is what we have in the United States. But we associate the idea of if you work hard, you'll get ahead with capitalism. That's not necessarily true. Hard work is hard work. Having the desire to create is not associated with capitalism. I didn't want to be a comedian because I was born in the United States where it's a capitalist country. I wanted to be a comedian because it's an art form that's been around for years and 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 years. And it's part of the human condition to want to create to some extent. And I was drawn to it, and I was drawn to a lot of the literature, and I was really into music, and it was a natural leap. Creative expression is not unique to capitalism, nor can you only be in a capitalist, a quote, capitalist country to be a creative professional. Now, are there some authoritarian states where being a creative professional is not really viable or possible? Yes. That is a real thing too. But to just link that to capitalism is just bogus. Like it just makes zero sense. Excuse me, I need a little water. All right, so here's the poll. A survey released Monday revealed that 70% of U.S. millennials, those between the ages of 23 and 38 in 2019, would support a socialist candidate for president, a result which a number of progressives viewed as an outgrowth of the damage wrought in recent decades by neoliberal capitalism and the ruling corporate order. Among those slightly younger voters between the ages of 16 and 22, the sentiment was almost as high, with nearly 2/3 of Generation Z saying the same. The poll was taken by YouGov and paid for by the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, which surveyed 2,100 people about their views of capitalism and the U.S. economic system, socialism, and inequality in the United States. Now, again, there's a difference between what we refer to as democratic socialism and authoritarian socialism, or authoritarian communism. Those are all different things. Those are all different things. And a lot of these things taken to their extreme get very ugly. But what we do in the United States is when we talk about socialism or communism, we only look at the authoritarian style, which of course is not a good thing. We don't look at the idea of a democratic version of it, like what they do in Norway and Denmark and Sweden and places like that, which, by the way, you know, all those other countries, they also have creative professionals there, by the way. There's plenty of comedians in England and Denmark and Sweden, and there's musicians there, and you can be creative there and blah, blah, blah. So we only focus on those negativities. We only focus on that style of it. But when it comes to capitalism, we attribute all these positive virtues to capitalism, that if it wasn't for capitalism, which again, is just the pursuit of capital above all else, we wouldn't have all these things. We wouldn't be able to just work hard and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And that's another just completely bogus, mawkish misnomer. We associate all those great things to capitalism. We never talk about the ugly side of it, which is basically what it's set up to do. Capitalism is set up to do this. It's set up to have a huge rich and poor gap, and only an elite few have power. That's what capitalism is set up to do. That's what it does every single time it is tried. But we take all these virtues, and they're not related. The idea of wanting to contribute to society has nothing to do with capitalism. Nothing at all. If anything, it's socialism, if anything else. Because the idea of contributing to the greater good brings about the sense of community, which is more commonly associated with socialism or even communism than capitalism. I mean, really, it's not necessarily directly related to any type of economic system. It really isn't. But if you're going to assign it to one, capitalism shouldn't even be on the list. So we attribute all these positive virtues to capitalism, which is just absolute nonsense. It's like saying, "Man, I'm going on a good diet. I really have the stage lighting to thank." You know what I mean? Like, just two completely unrelated things. I'm eating well, thanks communism. I have the desire to do a favor for my sister. Thanks, anarchy. Like, what? What are you talking about? If we did this for like other, economic schools of thought, people would just look at us like we're crazy, like I made a donation to You get the idea. All right. So, but it looks like this generation, millennials, Gen Z, they're seeing through it. They're seeing through this ridiculous worship of capitalism and drawing positive virtues into capitalism when it has nothing to do with capitalism. They're seeing through that, and they're seeing through the demonization of socialism too. They're seeing through that as well, and that's a good thing. All right, cool.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and